All right. Just got done doing a 6 mile run here. It's my first run back since I crashed. And I figured, you know what, when I was running, I figured let's do Insta stories, race report slash crash reports. So with that, I'll start giving a little bit of a rundown on what exactly happened on Saturday. So, I was feeling pretty good. I was in a really good mindset. Training went super well leading up to Ironman Texas. I had some killer weeks. Um, Training was consistent. I was hitting targets on the bike, on the run. Heart rates were staying where they needed to be. Power levels were where they needed to be. The last few rides I did, I mean, I was actually hitting power targets over what I was trying to target. So I figured, hey, if I end up going out and it feels great to ride 5-10 watts over what I was targeting, then I'll, let it rip. But, I really was in a good mindset going in. I had no pressure on myself. I wasn't trying to run for a Kona spot, or I wasn't trying to set a PR. The goal of the race was to just have a good old freaking time and do the sport that I love to do and enjoy. So, I was smiling. I mean, it was like happy tears going into that race. It was just a really good place to be as far as going into Ironman Texas. And then, when I lined up in the swim corral, I was smiling. I said hi to a new friend named Ross, as he was just a few lines over from me. And, I jumped in the water. I was feeling good, probably a little too excited, went out a little too fast, but I immediately kind of reeled that in and said, hey, chill out. This is a 2.4 mile swim. There's a while to go. And that first, they break up the swim in thirds. A third of it's down, a third of it's back, and a third's down the canal. So that's, I think anyone that's done this race a million times here in Texas knows that's how long it takes, or those are the distances. So on the way down, it felt good. Running into a few people, but that was to be expected. But I was just struggling to get a feel for the water. I just couldn't, I don't know, it just felt like everything was tight. I just couldn't get the proper feel for the pace from pool to open water. So I was trying to control it a little bit and say, hey, just ease up, try to get that feel back, try to know what your pacing is just based off feel. So I think by the time I turned around, I'd started to get that feel back for what I needed to do. But, one of the other things I think kind of hurt me there was I only did one swim with a wetsuit prior to jumping in the water to do a 2.4 mile swim with a wetsuit. So I think that was a little bit of what hurt me. But, I was just doing what I know what to do, which is just keep the arms turning, the legs kicking, and I started to swim a little bit straighter versus what I did on that first third. I wasn't having the sight as much, and I could use a little bit of the folks around me to sight off of. And, I kind of figured they're swimming straight, then I'm swimming straight. And I didn't completely rely on those folks. I still peeked up every once in a while. Hit that halfway mark in that big old arch buoy we got to go under, and then started to go make my way into the canal. And at this point, my hips started to feel really tight. I figured, hey, this is what's happening when you haven't swum in a wetsuit for so long. I got a pretty strong kick in my swim, so I think, restricting it a little bit with that wetsuit and the compression that it provides, was wearing on my hips a little bit. But I feel like I really had the feel for the water at that point. But we started going down the canal, and I felt like there was a little bit of a current pushing against us. Not that big of a deal. I was starting to feel really good. I was feeling my paces a little bit better at that point. So I started pushing as much as I could. And I was starting to really get just freaking tired of the swim at that point too. I remember going under, I forget what bridge it is, if it's Six Pines or something. And I'm thinking to myself like, holy crap, I still got to get all the way down to the finish. But, I finally saw that final turn buoy, and, I know all the push glide kick folks that I normally work with at Swim Exit were sitting there and waiting for me. Well, not waiting for me particularly, but I know they'd be, I was happy to see them, so I was hoping they'd be happy to see me. So I got there, heard my name yelled a few times, and just tried to quickly look around and say, hey, see who was there and say, hey, but, this is a race, so I got to get moving. And Ran up, grabbed my bag, kind of a weird number to yell out. You know, you say 2100 and people kind of look at you weird. So I was going 2100, 2100, 2100. So I was kind of saying it two different ways to try to make sure that people heard what I was saying, and got my bag, ran in, dropped it all in transition. And what do you know? My visor on my helmet just plops off and rolls off. So I got to go grab that, put it back on my helmet, put on, you know, the shoes and the cap sleeves and all that good stuff. And got myself running out of transition. Probably could have gone faster, but, you know, I did practice it. But just, I think with the visor popping off, I probably added more time than I care to admit to try to get that adjusted, especially after you just got done swimming 2 miles. And ran out. Another thing, they need to limit numbers on registration. That's one of my gripes. Is I got to my bike and there was absolutely zero space on either side of my bike. It was basically my pedal was touching the frame of the bike next to me, and the rack was actually sitting so low that a volunteer had to come over and help lift it up so I could actually get my saddle out, because I couldn't even turn it side to side to get it out. But so he helped me out. I don't know who that volunteer was. I didn't recognize him. So hopefully he appreciates, or I appreciate everything he did for me there. And especially it was kind of a quick reaction too. I think he only saw me struggle for about a second before he came over to help. So I got running out of transition, saw my family, you know, that always puts a tear in the eye. So I was happy to see them. Clipped in, just started riding, pushing the pedals, and, you know, I had a big old smile on my face. You know, it's like, hey, hell, I'm about to go out and have a good old time on the Hardy Toll Road. So my numbers weren't great. I could feel that my hips were still tight from that swim, which sucked. I was pushing probably about 15 watts under what I really wanted to do, and I was kind of going, damn, you know, I was hitting above numbers those last few rides, but at the same time I hadn't trained for that swim the bike transition with a wetsuit on. So, you know, it is what it is. So I figured, you know, I'm just out here to have fun. It's not like I'm going for a big old PR or win my age group or any of that crap. So it's just like, you know, it is what it is. If I get to the end of the toll road and I got to get off to stretch my legs, then hell, I'll get off and stretch my legs and try to loosen up the hips a little bit. Even if I stand there at that aid station and take in I would say Gatorade, but looks like all they had was mortal hydration. I wasn't touching that crap. So if I just, you know, drink some water and chill for a minute and get going again, I figured, you know, I'd be good after that. But, you know, I was stretching, trying to stand up on the bike a little bit, you know, push my hips forward, out, side to side, see if that helped loosen things up. Honestly, that really wasn't working, but, you know, whatever. I just kept pushing down the road. And, you know, to be honest, even though the power wasn't there, the speed was there. And I'm going to say that's entirely thanks to Jorge at Free Speed Lab. Really tuned in where I needed to be sitting on that bike, dialed in all the equipment to make sure that I was as aerodynamic or as low as CDA rolling resistance as possible going, you know, through the air. And I think that helped. So even with the lower numbers, I was still moving pretty quickly, even, you know, less effort at least the most effort I could put out, you know. And at that point I was kind of thinking like, shit, you know, our friend Yana was probably gonna be coming by me a hell of a lot sooner than I'd care to admit, but, you know, it is what it is, and I'll keep riding. And finally got on the Hardy Toll Road and I'm pushing down, and next thing you know, I see this group go by, big old pack. And I wouldn't say it was that big yet, but it had a group of probably, I don't know, I'd say 6 or 9 guys go by, and they were all right on each other's tail. And I thought, you know, what the hell? You know, this is supposed to be an individual race, and it's not supposed to be drafting, but, you know, I kind of went, you know, that's one group. Let's not think about it. So I kept pushing my numbers, didn't let that affect me. And then I come up over, I don't know if anyone, I'm sure the people have done this race and know that big first kind of climb over by the railroad tracks there. I come up over that and I see that this pack is now formed into like 30 people. And I'm like, holy crap, like what the hell? Everyone's cheating now. We're back to 2018 when I did this race. And it was just a massive draft pack. But luckily that didn't start until later in the first lap, starting into the second lap. This was right away. I'm like, no shame, let's just get right into draft packs. And I thought, what the hell? So I'm kind of looking over my shoulder like, where's the damn official? And so I put it out of my mind. I keep riding down the road. And at this point, I'm at six and a half miles down the Hardy Toll Road. I just checked my file this morning to see where exactly I was on the Hardy, and another pack goes by. And at this point, I remember looking to my left, and there was two guys stacked next to me. So, one to my immediate left, and another one right to his immediate left. I don't know. At this point, everything's kind of a blur exactly what happened. I think I'm not going to take blame, or not going to blame them. And honestly, it was probably a little bit mostly my fault too, where I was more focused on what was going on with them and more concerned that they were drafting, and not paying attention to where my line was, sort of thing. And, I feel like I did get pushed a little bit to the right just because these guys came up fast and hard next to me. Next thing you know, I'm looking up and there's a cone right in front of me, and I did a little swerve to dodge it. I think from what I can remember, the front wheel missed, but the back wheel didn't. And this sent me kind of up and over to the right when my wheel hit it. And I remember for a split second, it was, oh shit, I am going down. And from that point, it was just carnage. Like, I remember leaning over and the crunch of the bike. And from what I can remember, I think I landed on my right and rolled over and flopped on my left side. And then that momentum actually popped me right back up on my feet. And I remember getting up, and I'm looking at the fence right in front of me, and I'm going, probably every cuss word under the sun at that point that I'm not going to share on Instagram stories. But I turned around, saw the carnage on my bike, kind of walked up to it and saw the front fork was just gone. It was beyond repair at that point. I think I later looked at the front wheel, and the whole axle was bent down, and there's no way I would have been able to ride it if I wanted to. I think that crossed my mind for a second, like, just jump back on your bike and keep going. But that wasn't meant to be. And I guess now I'll go over and show a little bit of what's left over. You can see the fork is not connected to the rest of the frame. It's all kind of zip tied together. The base bar is just hanging off to the side there. So it's gone. The shoes that I was wearing, brand new shoes that I bought, the whole toe on here scratched up. The sides all scuffed up. It's supposed to be nice, cool aerodynamic shoes. Those are trash now too. But, it happened in a second. Normally time feels to slow down and goes real slow when things like that happen, but it was like bam, bam, it was over. And I'm standing on the grass on the side of the Hardy Toll Road wondering what the hell just happened to me. Another thing that's really weird is when something like that happens, your first immediate thought is, I need to tell your loved ones, hey, I'm fine. But you're sitting there, you have no phone during a race. A few people would go by and say, hey, do you need help? And I'm like, I'm fine. Just nothing you can do. Just keep on doing your thing. Go race. I'm just going to wait for race support. About 15 minutes went by. I tried flagging down a few folks. They wouldn't stop. Like, I had the Montgomery County Health Department, Tahoe, go by me, and I was like, hey, stop for me. And he later came back and said, hey, I did see you. I actually had a medical emergency I had to get to. You seem to be in working order, so you weren't a priority, And I get that, they need to prioritize health out there. I think the guy up the road was having a massive dehydration, and he needed to get removed immediately. So he came back and said, hey, and at this point, I'd already flagged down a cop. He had stopped and called in my number, said my day was done. So he kind of apologized, said, hey, I did see you, I'm sorry, but I needed to go see someone else. I said, that's I appreciate that. Thanks for letting me know. Bike mechanic had stopped as I was talking to the police officer that had stopped for me, and he goes, hey, you need a bike help? And I pointed at my bike and said, you ain't fixing that. And he, his eyes got real big as he looked at the fork kind of just laying in pieces there. And so I'd asked him after he was about to leave, hey, can I use your phone real quick to call my wife, at least let her know, hey, I'm okay, bike's not. So he let me use his phone and call my wife. Hung up with her. She told me afterwards she didn't know if I was just running on adrenaline or not, and if I was really okay, or if I really need to go see a doctor or hospital after that. I was honestly fine. The worst of it was actually this road rash on my forearm. But got back. It took an hour after that phone call before I finally got it back to transition. Um, I think it was my wife and Gemma standing there. They were both relieved to see that I actually walked out on my own accord and was okay, and the bike wasn't. So that's my report, my crash report. The emotions hit me yesterday. We actually had a homestay pro stay at our house for about 3 weeks, and I took him to the airport. And it's funny because it was like all the activities and all the things going on with the race. When I got off, it was about, let's just go have a few beers at the team tent, celebrate with my Valhalla teammates, even though I really wasn't celebrating, but celebrating the race, because this is like the Super Bowl of triathlons in our area. And it's just something that I love being a part of. And so went, celebrated at the tent, rooted on the pro Fenella that was at our house. I don't think it ended the way she wanted to, but she'd put herself in a good position to win the race, to start the run. So I think that's something to be proud of. So it's almost like, your kid or your sister or family member, they've been staying at your house like that, so you almost want to go and cheer them on because they're like part of your family at that point. And I think that kind of helped alleviate the emotions of the day of not being able to finish. And I think once all of that finally settled down, the race was over, she went home, her and her fiance went home, Billy, and it's like, it just hit me like, holy crap, all that effort, it didn't come to fruition at the end of the day. But I the emotions hit for a little bit, and then I said, what are you gonna do about it now? Like, it's sitting here crying over that day is not gonna help me move forward. So at this point, it's networking, seeing what I can do to get a new bike. I don't know what the end of the story will be at the end of the day on that one. Don't ask me about, I know a few people have commented about insurances. Don't get me started on that. That's a mess. And then also, I appreciate everyone that reached out to me after all this had happened, or tracking and saying, they're sorry to hear what had happened and glad I was okay. To be honest, looking at my bike right here as I say this report, holy crap, I can't believe I even walked away from that. But right now, the only niggle I really have is in my right shoulder, and I don't know if that's from the crash or just from the fact that I swam 2 miles with a wetsuit on, and I don't normally do that. That's just some of the soreness that's still in there. But seeing Clayton at Mobility Cairo tomorrow, go see him if you need help. Hopefully he can kind of work things out for me. But I'll recover. I'll get back out there. There's a lot of fitness now that I've built up early in the year that I hope to use here now, hopefully through mid to late summer and definitely into the fall. I already told my wife, I'm targeting a fall half Ironman now at this point. We'll see about a full next year maybe and how that works out. But that's a discussion to have with my lovely wife, and planning and trip planning and kid activities and all that fun stuff, being a dad. But yeah, there you go. There's my crash report for Ironman Texas, and I'll be back to it sooner or later. If anyone that's still listening, appreciate it. Thanks. And I'll see you out there at the races this summer. See ya. Peace.